You're tired, not of poker. You're tired of being the same player every single week. You study, you open the solver, you memorize ranges, review spots, watch videos of players who seem to be operating at a completely different level. And yet, when you pull up your graph at the end of the month, it tells the same story. Plateau, stagnation, that quiet, devastating feeling that something you can't name is keeping you from reaching the place you're capable of. Let me tell you what that something is. It's not a lack of technique. It's not a lack of volume. It's not even bad luck, even though some months it feels exactly like that. What keeps you stuck is the frequency at which you operate. It's the invisible code running underneath every decision you make. At the table, in life, in study, in the moment of pressure, in the moment of failure. That code was written by years of unconscious habits, beliefs you've never examined, emotional patterns you repeat without realizing it. And until that code is rewritten, no technical improvement will take you to the next level. You'll keep getting technically better and emotionally identical. This video is not motivation. Motivation lasts 3 days. This is engineering. This is the complete map of the transformation that separates the average grinder from the player who dominates the field and builds a real life from the game. You're going to understand today why the best players don't seem to be working hard, why they take bad beats with a serenity that seems impossible, why money flows to them with a consistency that has nothing to do with luck. And most importantly, you're going to understand what you need to build inside yourself so that same consistency becomes your reality. If you stay until the end, you're going to leave here with a system, not an idea, a system. Something you can implement today, tomorrow, and next month. Something that changes not just the graph, but the way you think, decide, and exist under pressure. The treadmill is over. The real game starts now. Everything in poker is information, and all information starts with energy. When you sit at a table in a state of fear, fear of losing the buy-in, fear of getting rivered in a massive pot, fear of being exposed as a player who doesn't belong at that stake, you're not just uncomfortable. You're emitting a pattern. That pattern affects every single decision you make. You underbet hands that should be bet for maximum value. You fold in spots that demand courage. You hesitate at the exact moment when assertiveness is the only path to profit. Unshakable vibration is not a mystical concept. It's the mental state in which you operate when your larger objective is so clear that no immediate result can knock you off course. It's what happens when you stop placing your ego in the outcome of the hand and start placing your ego in the quality of the decision. That shift seems small. It is everything. Elite players are not immune to bad beats. They get coolered, go through downswings, lose massive pots the same way you do. The difference is that they process those results in a different time frame. Because for them, losing a pot where the decision was correct is not a defeat. It's confirmation that the process is working, and a correct process, executed with consistency, produces inevitable results. Now ask yourself honestly, what is your real why? Not the answer you'd give in an interview, the true answer. What are you building with this game? What kind of life are you funding? What legacy does the money represent? If you don't have that answer clearly, if it doesn't make you feel something when you think about it, then any downswing will knock you down. Because without a why that's bigger than the session, every bad session feels like the end. And when every bad session feels like the end, you don't make long-term decisions. You make survival decisions. And survival decisions destroy bankrolls. Vibrate high because you have a reason that matters. And when you have a reason that matters, the frequency changes. The way you sit at the table changes. The way you process pressure changes. And when all of that changes, the results have no choice but to follow. Write your why in the comments right now. 1 sentence. What are you building with this game? The greatest opponents you'll face in your career will never sit across from you. They live inside you. And the biggest one has a simple name. The fear of failure. When you hesitate before pulling the trigger on a high-pressure bluff, it's not a lack of technique. The bluff is correct. You did the analysis. The villain's range is compressed. The board favors your narrative. The bet size makes sense. But your finger hovers over the check button and something says, what if it goes wrong? What if he has exactly that hand? That voice is not good judgment. That voice is fear of failure disguised as analysis. The mental geometry that separates average players from elite players is how each one interprets a mistake. For the average player, making a mistake is evidence that they're not good enough. For the elite player, a mistake is a data point in a set of information that refines the system over time. There are no badly played hands, only unreviewed hands. There is no mistake that diminishes you, only mistakes that teach you, provided you have the honesty and courage to sit with them. Every buy-in you lose is the fee you pay for knowledge that no book can give you at the same dose, the knowledge of how you behave under real pressure, with real money, against real opponents who also want to win. That knowledge, processed correctly, is what builds champions. And here's the shift that changes everything. When you embrace failure as part of the design, you stop playing not to lose. You start playing to grow, and playing to grow is radically different from playing not to lose. One produces action, the other produces paralysis. One builds edge over time, the other just pays rake while standing still. Personal leadership starts here. Before you lead a table, before you apply pressure to an opponent, before you execute any advanced concept, you need to be able to lead yourself. And leading yourself means choosing, repeatedly, the correct behavior at the hardest moment. Even when you don't feel like it, even when the table is destroying you, even when the session seems beyond repair. That is the rarest skill in poker, and it's not available in any solver. Stop for a moment before we continue, because what comes next is going to require you to be equipped, and I can't give you what's missing in terms of tools within a video. If you want to accelerate everything we're building here, the mindset, the system, the execution, you need the right tools. In the pinned comment, you'll find 2 ebooks that are, without exaggeration, the most direct and practical resources I've ever created for the serious player. The first is called The Only Poker Math You'll Ever Need. Advanced mathematics explained with such clarity that anyone can absorb and apply it. No complicated formulas, no useless abstraction. Concepts that permanently change how you see every decision at the table. The second is Controlled Aggression. How winners use 3 bets, 4 bets, and all-ins. This is about the aggression that wins, not the impulsive aggression that burns bankrolls. The controlled, calculated aggression built on top of range understanding and pressure applied at exactly the right moment. It's the book that turns you into the player the field fears sitting next to. Beyond those 2, there are 8 other titles in the collection, each covering a different dimension of the game. Psychology, risk management, range construction, advanced spots. It's the complete library for anyone who takes this seriously. The link is in the pinned comment. Clicking there and investing in these resources is probably the best decision you'll make for your career today. And now we go back to the system, because the next part is the one most players never want to hear about themselves. No poison corrodes performances silently as comparison. You open Twitter and see someone's graph climbing. You're in a group and someone posts a result that seems impossible. And at some point, before you even notice, you've stopped thinking about your game and started thinking about theirs. And when you're thinking about their game, you're not improving yours. The uncomfortable truth is this: people are living their own lives. That player who posted the graph has their own battles you don't see. The downswing that came before the post, the anxiety the day before the result, the months of study they don't document. You see the trophy, you don't see the process. And when you compare your process to someone else's trophy, you're making a comparison that doesn't exist in reality. Your ego is very good at convincing you that everyone is watching, that everyone is judging your graph, your line in a hand, your decision to still be at the same stake you were at 6 months ago. The truth is, nobody is. Everyone is so busy with their own insecurities that there simply isn't space to monitor yours. When you truly understand this, not intellectually, but in your body, you gain a freedom that transforms how you play. You start taking more risks because you don't have a reputation to protect with every decision. You experiment with new lines because the fear of looking wrong no longer governs your strategy. You evolve faster because the feedback you use is your own graph, your own study, your own progression, not the thermometer of what others think of you. Focus on what you can control, the volume you're going to play this week, the quality of the study you're going to do today, the honest review you're going to complete after the session. Comparison steals energy that should go there, and misdirected energy is money left on the table. Look at your circle carefully. You are shaped by the people you spend the most time with. Seek out those who think bigger than you do today. Ask for reviews. Build a mastermind. Surround yourself with people who raise the standard. This isn't empty networking. It's one of the highest ROI decisions you can make. What you emit, you reinforce. And what you reinforce, you become. When you enter a session with a victim mentality, convinced the site hates you, that you always get bad beaten in the right spots, that variance is personal, you're not just being negative, you're tuning into a frequency that directly affects the quality of your decisions. You start playing passive to protect yourself from the pain of losing. You start checking spots that should be bets because the pain of betting and losing feels bigger than the cost of not betting. You stop noticing windows of opportunity because your attention is entirely on what might go wrong. The law of resonance in poker isn't magic. It's mechanical. When you operate in a state of scarcity, you make scarcity decisions. When you operate in a state of abundance, with the clarity that the long run is the only period that matters, that variance is your ally because without it, recreational players wouldn't play. That every session is just a data point in a very long series. You start making abundance decisions. And abundance decisions have positive EV that scarcity decisions will never have. Cultivate the abundance mindset actively. This means celebrating when the villain takes the pot with a well-executed bluff, because he's the type of player who creates the situations from which you'll profit in the long run. It means accepting the cooler as part of the game's design, not as a personal injustice. It means entering every session with the single objective of making the best available decisions and trusting that the result takes care of itself from there. Protect your energy before the session. Social media drains attention before you even realize it. Save the focus for what matters. Sleep enough. Don't play hungry, angry, or with your head somewhere else. This isn't self-help. It's cognitive resource management. And your cognitive resources are the most valuable asset you bring to the table. Luck favors those who are prepared, and preparation begins long before the first ace you click. Erik Seidel lost the final hand of the 1988 main event to Johnny Chan. It was one of the most watched moments in poker history, immortalized in the film Rounders, where he appears as the guy who lost. He could have become just that, the guy who lost. Instead, he became one of the greatest legends of the game, with bracelets, victories, and millions earned across decades. What separated the two paths wasn't luck. It was how he handled the failure. Not as a sentence, as a data point. Phil Ivey went through periods of brutal losses, through personal challenges that would destroy most people, through public pressure that few careers survive, and he's still considered by many to be the greatest player of all time, because he never allowed external noise to define the internal narrative. The art of handling failure is not about not feeling. You're going to feel. Taking a cooler in a 3-buy-in pot hurts. Losing a final table after hours of precise play hurts. Failing in a spot you studied and should have gotten right hurts. Feeling is human. The problem is not feeling. The problem is when feeling becomes ruminating, when ruminating becomes guilt, and when guilt becomes the mental state in which you make the next decision. Guilt is trapped energy. It doesn't produce learning. It paralyzes. What produces learning is clean analysis. What specifically happened? What caused it? What I do differently next time? What's the simplest rule I can install so this pattern doesn't repeat? 4 questions. No judgment. With honesty. Elite players process mistakes in minutes because this protocol is automatic for them. Not because they're cold, because they know the next hand deserves the best version of them, not the version still carrying the last hand. Be the Erik Seidel of your own story. The scene that knocks you down today might be the scene that defines who you became tomorrow. Poker is the most honest mirror that exists. It doesn't lie. It doesn't spare you. It shows, with brutal and repetitive precision, who you are when no one is watching. When the pressure is real, when the money is real, when the decision has to be made now and there's no time to rationalize. If you're passive in life, if you avoid difficult conversations, if you postpone decisions that matter, if you retreat from anything that looks like confrontation, you'll have difficulty executing triple barrels. Not because you don't know when to execute them, but because the muscle of acting under pressure has never been trained. Poker will charge you for this in a currency that hurts. If you're impulsive in life, if you act on impulse, if you react before processing, if anger or euphoria determine your choices, you'll burn bankroll in ways that no amount of study will compensate, because no solver protects you from yourself. Advanced strategic mindset understands that technical game and mental game are not two separate subjects. They're the same subject. Studying big blind defense ranges isn't just mathematics. It's understanding what the villain is feeling, where his fear is, how the pressure you apply affects how he makes decisions. When you combine cutting-edge technique with a stable mental presence, you become a player who plays people and situations, not just cards and probabilities. Awaken your strategic side. Look at every session as an information war where the biggest edge isn't in the cards, but in the mental state with which you play them. Train the mind with the same seriousness with which you train the game. Read, review, meditate if you need to. Exercise your body. The connection between physical health and decision quality is documented and real. Manage your sleep with an athlete's seriousness. When technique and mindset align, you stop trying to win. You simply play well. And playing well, consistently, is the only path to winning that exists. Consistency isn't glamorous. There's no post to make when you complete the 13th review session of the month. There's no trophy for the day you honored your stop loss for the 4th consecutive time even though you wanted to keep playing. There's no public recognition for the hundreds of times you chose the solver over Netflix. And yet, that is exactly where champions are built. Creating elite habits starts with a decision that seems too small to matter, making discipline easier than procrastination. Not easier in the sense of comfortable, easier in the sense of automatic. When you study because it's Tuesday at 7 and Tuesday at 7 is study time, you've removed the decision from the equation. And when you remove the decision, you eliminate the battlefield where procrastination used to win. Prepare the environment for success. If you want to be professional, have a setup that signals professionalism to your own brain. A good chair, a dedicated desk, notifications turned off, water on the table. This isn't luxury, it's behavioral architecture. Environment shapes behavior far more than willpower does. Every time you choose to study when you'd rather rest, you're not just learning poker. You're telling your subconscious, I'm the kind of person who does what needs to be done. And the subconscious listens. It calibrates confidence accordingly, and confidence manifests at the table in the form of decisions made with clarity, without the hesitation of someone who isn't sure they deserve to be where they are. Consistency transforms talent into lasting results. And lasting results build the only thing that matters in the long run, a career. To never stagnate again, you need one thing that is rare and that can be developed: the beginner's mind. The beginner's mind is not naivety. It's the willingness to question what you already know. To sit with a hand you think you know how to play and ask, do I really know? Or am I repeating an old pattern with the confidence of someone who studied enough to stop studying? Poker is a living ecosystem. What beat the field 2 years ago can be exploited against you today. The spot you thought you had figured out may have evolved in ways your mental model hasn't followed. Players who mastered the game and then stopped questioning became players the field has mastered. The arrogance of thinking you've arrived is the plateau disguised as competence. Keep being a student. Keep questioning your own lines. Ask for reviews from players who will tell you what you don't want to hear. Review hands you think you played correctly with the same coldness with which you review the ones you know you played wrong. Because sometimes the hand you think you played right has an error that the hand you know you played wrong doesn't. The humility to recognize a mistake isn't weakness. It's the greatest strength an elite player can have, because it keeps the learning system open when the ego wanted to close it. Success in poker is a marathon. There's no sustainable sprint in this game. The players who reach the top and stayed there are the ones who learn to love the process as much as the result, who find satisfaction in the study no one will see, in the review no one will praise, in the quiet discipline that will separate you from everyone who quit when it got hard. You're here. That already says something about who you are. Now go all the way. Darn, you made it to the end, and that already separates you from most people. Most people watch a video, feel something, and change nothing. You have the choice to be different, to leave here not with motivation that lasts 3 days, but with a system you start building in the next few hours. One different behavior, One review you wouldn't have done before. One study session you'll complete because it's on the schedule, not because you feel like it. You understood today that vibration is a pattern of decisions, not a feeling. That the identity governing the table was built by votes cast outside it. That failure is data, not a sentence. That comparison steals energy that belongs to the process. That quiet consistency builds what loud talent can never maintain. Apply one concept. Today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. In the next few hours. And if you want to accelerate this journey with the right tools, the ebooks are waiting for you in the pinned comment. The only poker math you'll ever need and controlled aggression. Those are the two resources that will most directly change what happens at your table. And beyond them, 8 more titles in the collection to cover every dimension of the game you need to master. If this video gave you something real, subscribe to the channel. Share it with a player who needs to hear this. Like the video, not as a favor, but because when you do, the algorithm carries this content to other grinders who are exactly where you were when you started watching. And we genuinely need your support to keep growing and producing content at this level. The ego is your greatest enemy. Consciousness is your greatest ally. And you just chose consciousness. See you at the top, trophy in hand, mind at peace.